So why are certain brands of gas equipment getting harder to find? Years ago, you could have gone to a local big box store and bought a Poland product, whether it be a mower, blower, trimmer, and most notably a chainsaw. But now it's getting harder to find them. But why? If you needed a cheap and decent tool, you could get it. But times have changed and some brands are either changing or disappearing altogether. Soon your brand of choice is going to be a distant memory. In today's video, we're going to look at this Poland brand leaf blower, and the problem is that it stopped running while being used, but before it did that, it was making a really strange noise. Now, I've already made a video about this blower, and if you want to see that video, there should be a link to it at the top of the screen or at the end of the video. And I'm just going to use the video as a background while I talk about why certain brands, and in this case Poland, are getting harder to find. Now the easy answer would be the onslaught of battery equipment, but I think the answer is a bit more complicated than that. If you didn't see it, I've already made a video discussing the rise and dominance of battery equipment, so I'm not going to go into great detail again, but I do want to talk about some of the key points in relation to what it's doing to the marketplace, whether that be a brick and mortar establishment or to an online store. Now, there's no doubting it, but the future is here and batteries are going to win this one, and rightfully so. They offer instant power and are relatively reliable, and if done correctly, can be powered by renewable resources. As far as consumers go, they're all on board. Well, most are. Some are holding out and you can't blame them. Now, when going to your local hardware store, you're going to see the ratio of gas to electric is going to favor the electrics. But why? The answer is as plain as day: money. If a company puts a product on their shelves or on the floor, it's meant to generate revenue for them. And right now it appears that when the floor had half electric and half gasoline, the sales numbers started to change, going from lower sales for the electric, but then increasing to a point that the stores soon realized that there was a shift away from gasoline and towards batteries. However, this data might not tell the whole story, and I'm afraid the stores might not see the real story of what's really going on. When you have a gasoline-powered piece of equipment, eventually it's going to develop some issues, mainly due to poor maintenance and being unused for long periods of time. That meant the customer could either have it fixed or just buy a new one. Since there's a market to make money repairing equipment, some would choose to not buy new and just keep the same machine. But what happens when you have an issue with a battery tool? Do you take it to a small engine store to have it fixed? No, just throw it away and buy a new one. That meant anytime the battery, motor, or electronics, which we all know to be finicky sometimes, develops an issue, the result would most likely be the purchase of a new battery tool. Now, coming from the perspective of a vendor, you'd rather sell more new items than try to have them serviced, especially under warranty. It's unfortunate, but if you go down to your local hardware store, they're not going to try to help you fix anything, only try to sell you something. And because of the disposable design that most consumers willingly accept, we end up with a product that's basically unserviceable. Now, some very resourceful people will elect to take their machines apart to try and find the issue, but once you realize that the problem is on the circuit board, either a chip or something that requires special tools to change, most will bail on the project, and you can't blame them. Of course, if you do have the tools to fix them, the problem is that there's a lot of liability involved, which most don't want to take part in. Now, some would say that the problem is just the battery, which is something you can service, and that taking it apart, finding the dead cell, and removing it and replacing it is not as difficult as it seems. But my argument is that the cell you replaced will not be the same as all the others in the original pack, and that cell or even a different cell will eventually stop working as well. If you want to do it the right way, you'd have to replace all the cells in that pack, and hopefully all the cells you purchased will be the same or as close as possible. And to be honest, if you're going to do it that way, you might as well just buy a new battery, either an OEM one, which will cost you, or you can get a knockoff. But remember, you get what you pay for. You're not getting a $200 battery for half price, and there's a good chance that knockoff battery has half the capacity it says it has. So what about buying knockoff parts for your gasoline equipment? Doesn't that same rule apply to them as well? And the answer is yes. You get what you pay for, and if you buy a car but for half the price, Either the manufacturers are willing to make less profit on them, or they're somehow skimping on materials or a level of manufacturing to help make their product much cheaper than an OEM part. Now, I have no way of knowing how they're able to make their products for as little as they do, but if I had to guess, it'd have to be lower grade materials, less quality control, and the last one is the hardest one to say out loud, which is what kind of labor is doing the work. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying because that's as far as I'm willing to talk about it. So does that mean I'm only going to buy OEM products to keep all these unfortunate possibilities from happening? Sadly, no. If you ever want to try to get someone to change their mind about anything, bring money into the argument, and if you say the right numbers, they'll pick the right option for them. And I'm not any different. If I had an immense amount of money, then I might choose the more expensive option, but if that's not the case, the other option will do. So how does this have anything to do with this pull-in blower? Easy. Consumers are not choosing it as often as other cheaper options. That means sales revenues will be less, and having these on the floor and on the shelves are not helping. So that means they're being pulled off the shelves and being replaced with other options that consumers are willing to buy. So if they're not selling them at the stores, where can you find them? If you hadn't guessed it, they're still being sold at online stores such as Amazon and a slew of other lesser known sites. If you really want one of these, you're going to have to find them, but you're better off probably buying a used one instead. Now, I was able to find at least one local store where I could buy it at, but it's an agricultural store that's all the way across town and more than 20 minutes away, even using the highway. Although it is nice that I can at least see what I'm getting ready to buy versus seeing it only in pictures online and then being surprised when it finally gets to me and realizing that it was completely misrepresented in the ad. But what if you don't want a pull-in blower? What if you wanted one of their trimmers instead? Unfortunately, where I'm located at, you won't be able to find a single distributor. The best you can do is to order one from an online store and have them ship it to you, but you're going to have some difficulty getting one from a well-known site, so be very careful. It's quite amazing, but unless you wanted to get one of their chainsaws, I don't think finding pull-in products will be very easy. So from this very information, it would seem their most popular product that still makes them money is their chainsaw, which is quite sad to hear. I think it was only a decade ago you could have gone to the store and picked up a mower, blower, and a trimmer, all branded Poland. Now it looks like they're just a shell of the company they used to be. That means what you're looking at is the beginning of the end of a company that's been around for a very long time, and due to the changes in the market have pretty much rendered them unwanted. If you really want a Poland product, you're going to have to put some effort into getting one. Except their chainsaws, you can get them with no problems. So what does that mean for this leaf blower or any other pull-in products that consumers might still have? Easy. As each year passes by, there'll be fewer of them in the hands of consumers. That means fewer companies will be less willing to carry spare parts for them, and eventually, one day, you won't be able to fix that pull-in product anymore, and you'll have to decide on getting a new product to replace it. Otherwise, you're going to have to get creative to fix it. Once there's no money in fixing something, there's a good chance this blower and other products like it will become worthless. Of course, if they still work, they're going to be worth something to somebody, but even then, eventually they'll disappear as well. So that means there's really no choice once the market starts to shift away from the type of products you've been accustomed to. It'll only be a matter of time until you're forced to change with it. So am I saying it's not worth fixing anymore? Of course not. You're free to do most anything you want that's not against the law or impedes on someone else's rights, at least where I live. What I am implying is that if you do enjoy using gasoline-powered equipment and possibly even fixing them, then enjoy it for as long as humanly possible, because at some point, fighting won't be a viable option anymore. As for this blower, I got it from a good neighbor who I'm glad to say did replace it with another gasoline one. Yes, it did need to be serviced to get it going again, but I was grateful for their gift. However, it took about a year before it had a major issue. It was so bad that most consumers, if they had taken it to a shop, would be greeted with,
"The fix is going to be expensive. In fact, it'd probably be best if you just bought a newer one instead. We've got a great sale going on and great financing as well."
Now, having equipment that needs attention or just breaks is not uncommon. It happens a lot with equipment, and it's going to happen, albeit in a different way, for battery equipment, but it is going to happen. Don't think that just because you went with the alternative that you're going to miss out on all the fun of having stuff not work the way it's supposed to. I never really thought that while doing this sort of hobby that I would see it change over from gasoline to electric. So what kind of future do I see for lawn equipment? Well, I expect to see less gasoline powered stuff and more electric, but gasoline will not go away completely. I see brands like this Poland transforming into just a brand name for rebadged universal tools, and other big brands coming out with lineups consisting of only battery equipment. And if you want to get gasoline stuff, you still can, but you have to go to commercial dealers to buy commercial units at extremely high prices, but at least you'll be able to fix them, right? Not really. Now, the price for parts will be sky high, so high that only companies will be able to afford them because no sensible consumer would buy a gasoline mower for $2,000 and pay $100 to $200 for a single part to fix it. I'm of course talking about carbs, ignition modules, recoils, and other essential parts that you'll need to keep it going. At some point, you're going to have to change, and they know it. So my question is, would you still buy a used gasoline machine knowing that more than likely that brand is not going to be around in a year or two? It would be a difficult choice to make, but for me, yes, I'd still buy him. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.